name is Allison Luce, and I'm here at the McColl Center for Art and Innovation. Today we're going to go through a Drawing Basics boot camp, and I'm going to share with you some information about drawing. So what we're going to need to get started are pencils. If you have a variety of drawing pencils, that is great. And then also an eraser or two, depending on what you have around the house, and also a sketchbook. And so we are going to talk about different drawing techniques, and then we're going to talk about how to use our pencils and erasers to get the best results. And then we're going to learn how to do some different types of drawing and use some different techniques such as cross-hatching, hatching, stippling, and scribbling. So now we're going to get started by talking a little bit about the difference between sketching and drawing. So some of you are taking this workshop because you want to draw, but you don't know how. And you think, what am I supposed to do when I try to draw something, it doesn't look like what I want it to? And so the most important thing to keep in mind when you're learning how to draw is that this is not the place for harsh self-critique. Drawing is a skill that can be learned. It is something that takes a long time to learn how to get your drawing to look the way you want it to. And so it's a progression. And so you should feel when you're learning how to draw that you're on a journey, and this is not a finite point to be achieved. And so with drawing, it's always something that you can improve because it's a skill. It's like learning how to be a dancer, or if you're in athletics, it's something that's a lifelong quest. And so it's something I want you to keep in mind and to not get discouraged when learning how to draw. So one thing we're going to discuss today is the difference between sketching and drawing. Sketching is a quick recording of what you're looking at. Sometimes a sketch is used to complete a drawing. Now, there's times and place for both. So I like to work in a sketchbook, and I take my sketchbook with me wherever I travel, and it's a great way to record where I am and different if I get to go out of the country, if we're at the beach, if we're in a city, I love to keep it with me. And I'll show you some images from my sketchbook later. And we're going to start with looking at our pencils and then the mark makings that they create, and then we'll talk about how we can use that in conjunction with our erasers in order to get the best results. So here on my tablet in my sketchbook, I have 3 different types of pencils. And so if you have just one pencil at home, if you have a standard 2B, or if you have a mechanical pencil, most of those are a number 2 pencil as well, that's fine. So feel free to work with what you have, and I'm going to explain the difference of the pencil gradations for those of you who have a variety. So the way it works with pencils is they have either a number and a letter on them. And so the HB that we have here on the pencil, you can see I made a value scale with that, is actually harder than a 4B pencil. So if you think about the H in the pencil stands for hard, then that will help you keep that in mind. And so when you look at this value scale here, I'm gonna make another little smaller one over here so you can see what this looks like. So this is the darkest that I can press this pencil. And then I can start over here and make it light, and then try to make a difference between the light and the dark. Now, you might be wondering, why would I want to practice making a value scale? Well, value scales are great techniques for artists to learn, because when we're drawing an object, what you will have is a variety of different shades in the object, and you're going to use your lightest value and the darkest but then most likely you're going to use this large area in between here in order to describe an object. And so it's important to be able to use these values in order to describe an object accurately. So this is my hardest pencil, the HB, and it's also good for using when you're going to draw something and you're not sure how it looks. So if you look at it and think, boy, this is going to be really hard to draw, it's going to be a good time to use a light pencil. Because if you use a darker pencil like this 4B that I have here, and then press really hard when you're not sure what lines you're making, then when you want to go to erase it, it's really hard and it's going to leave marks on your paper that you won't be able to get off. So remember, when you're using this HB pencil, it is your lightest pencil, and the pencils with the H, lighter, the pencils with the B, darker and softer. And so H stands for hard, and then B stands for soft. Unfortunately, I can't think of a rhyme or something like that that would make it make sense, but that's how it goes. Now, we're going to do, so we did our light scale. Now we're going to do a value scale with the 4B pencil. And then we're going to go from lighter to darker. And then I'm going to show you how to blend it with a paper towel. And then that will give us a progression that we can use in our drawings. Now, this up and down movement and this creating of lines is called hatching. And so we can introduce one of the terms we're going to be talking about today as we work on this. Now we're going to do our 2B pencil also. Getting darker as we get to the other side. And then you can see the difference as I lay down the different pencils in the variety of the pencil lead. So as you look at that, you can say, okay, I've made this grayscale light to dark, light to dark, light to dark. Now I'm going to go back in with a paper towel and I'm going to blend it, and then you can see that when I use the HB pencil, there's not that much to blend, and that the pencil is hard and it's kind of sharp, so it leaves pencil marks on it. And so it's kind of sharper looking. And so we can see now how we have a light to dark gradation. And if you say, oops, I got a little too dark at this end of the scale, then we're gonna go back and just kind of use our eraser to take that out a little bit. So now you've seen how you can use your pencil and your and pressure, I guess, pressure from your hand to create a value scale that you can use in your drawings. And what is interesting about this is that when you are creating this, when you have a difference between the dark and then the light over here, that's what's going to give you the most give you definition in a drawing, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So now we have the 2B, and you can see how that starts to come together, as well as the 4B. So what we're going to look at next is I am going to flip this over and then look at the HB, 2B, and 4B, and then look at our erasers. And so I have a variety of different erasers here. We have an eraser on our pencil. I have a little white eraser, and then this gray one. And the way this works is you can use this gray eraser to lift larger quantities of pencil lead this way. And so it's a great way to build subtlety in your artwork. And so then you can see that this is a great tool to kind of have a soft erasing in it. So that's very interesting. And then you can use this white pencil eraser, and then you can pull out areas and you can get more of a definition. And then this gives you a variety of ways to work. And so over here, this box was completely gray, and then I went out and I erased some of that box and some of the gray material. And then now I have a really sharp contrast between this and the erased out area. Now, just take a quick look at this, and then I'm going to show you how this works in actuality. So we have dark area of the pencil, HB, 2B, and 4B. Now I'm going to show you a sketch that I made when I was on vacation this spring. My husband and I went to St. Thomas for 10 days, and I took my sketchbook to the beach and made sketches while I was there. And so what technique I'm using here is kind of exactly what we were just talking about with the value scale and also erasing. And so I used my HB pencil, and then I did a basic sketch of the tree and the leaf and the fruit that I was drawing. And then I went in, so you can see that there's light lines in here. And I'm not afraid to go back and work on this now or add anything in. It doesn't matter, it's not precious, it's a sketch in my sketchbook. And then I went in and added in, I used a 2B pencil and then was able to add in areas like this. And then I actually used an 8B pencil because that's a pencil that I have in my own supplies, but you could use a 4B pencil and then add in darker areas like that. And so my standard technique of working is that I will add in most of the gray areas, and then I try to work from light to dark to keep it from getting too dark. And then I'll go in and then I'll blend, and then I'll use a piece of paper towel like this, and then can blend areas through here. And then I will go back and then erase out. And so it's a combination of blending, erasing, and then once I erase out certain areas, I'll go back and actually add in that final layer of, I guess like detail. And then I'll say, oh, I want to darken this up a little bit. So we're going to go in here and just add in a little dimension. And the way we get our drawings to look dimensional is to have this difference between light and dark. And so this dark area here juxtaposed with this lighter area then gives us definition. So think about that when you're working, and think about using your grayscale and how you can add volume to your work by using highlights, lowlights, and contrasts. So now we are going to talk about mark making. Mark making is the definition for using different marks of our pencil or pen or whatever we have in order to build up a texture on the paper, a visual texture. So the easiest one, and probably what we've already discussed, is hatching. And then this is when you go from right to left or from left to right and build up lines this way. Now the opposite of hatch is crosshatch, and that is when we go right to left and then left to right and then build up our visual texture this way. So there are a variety of ways to make different marks, and so we're going to talk about these 4, and then you can use these. I'm using this thin Sharpie so you can see this well on here, but you can use your pencil to do this like we've discussed previously, and then you can blend it further as well with your paper towel. So these are great ways to build up surface texture and to give more definition to your work. So now we've talked about hatching and cross-hatching. This one is easy. This is the scribble. And so this can go a little faster, and you can use this to fill in areas. This might be great to fill in for a tree, for foliage, maybe for some grass. Then you can think about using hatching for maybe more geometric shapes like buildings, and then stippling can be used for a variety of different subject matters as well. So once you start to stipple, I hope that you have all day, because stippling takes forever. And so it is a good technique, and sometimes it looks really nice if you use this to describe eyes or different things like that. And so it is a great technique, but it takes forever. So now here you can see that I have a gradation with the scribble. It gets a little lighter and then it gets darker up in this area. And the same with the hatch, going from, here we are going from right to left. And so remember that when you're using a technique like cross-hatching, hatching, and stippling, you can use this in a gradation just as well as you can as just usually a soft blending of your pencil. We are now going to talk about gauging proportions and then structural sketching. Now, the two go hand in hand, and often when we think about drawing, we become overwhelmed because we start with this, the blank piece of paper, often known as the blank canvas. It can be intimidating. So we will talk about a way to overcome this by using our pencil as a way to measure objects accurately. So when I'm using the pencil to measure an object, what I'm doing is holding it out at the full length of my arm, because this distance isn't going to change. And so I have a coffee cup here. Here we go. And I am going to use my pencil to measure the coffee cup and then translate it into a structural sketch. And a structural sketch is a way of sketching that's looking at what are the basic shapes comprising this object. And so we are going to look for a cylinder and a handle. And I'm going to measure this out with the pencil and then show you an easy way to do this. So I am going to put the coffee cup down where you can't see it, but I can, and I'm going to measure the height and the width. So I'm translating the height and the width of this object onto my paper. So let's talk it through. So the first thing I'm going to do is hold out my arm, and I'm going to look at the height of the coffee mug, and I'm looking at it, and in front of me it's looking like it's around maybe 2.5 inches on my pencil. And then I am going to go onto my tablet and then make a mark down here. And I'm gonna switch views so you can see it, but right now we're just talking it through conceptually, and then we'll switch down. And then, so I made marks on my paper. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm looking at the coffee cup's width. And I have my first measurement, and then I have it here, and I'm squinting to look at this so I can see it better. Now I'm holding it up to the width of the coffee cup, and the width of the coffee cup is 1 height plus about an inch more. So this object is like 1 1/4 times as wide as it is tall. So now we're gonna switch views down, and I'm gonna rough this in for you. Okay, so now we've switched views and we have what was my initial measurement of the height of the coffee cup. And so then I've looked at this and then now I've measured this out, and then I am going to put the one side of the coffee cup here, and then this is how wide it is. This is the height of it. And then I looked at it, and from my measurements when I was holding it up, it was about an extra inch wider. So then I'm gonna go over here and add this on. Now, this is not an exact way of measuring, but it is going to give us a basic measurement of the object. And so then I'm knowing that when I'm looking at this, that I'm able to get its basic size. So then we have, and this line work is what makes up a structural sketch. So here we have the basic size of the coffee mug. And so then I'm gonna go in and draw the basic width. And then I'm going to sketch in the lines for the mug here, for the handle. And then I have this coming around at the top, this line coming in here, drawing the ellipse, and then we're going to end up with our basic shape. And so I'm looking down at it, and so you can't really see the view that I'm looking at, but then I'm able to use that as a basic judgment line. So then what we're doing here is using our pencil to measure the width, the height, and the width of our object, and then translate it loosely onto our paper. So when you have your object and your pencil, that's all you need to know to make a structural sketch using gauging proportions with your pencil. Now we're going to discuss contour sketching. So contour sketches are a way to record an object by using a continuous line. And so this is different than a structural sketch in the fact that we are using the line to feel out an object. So this is not an exact way to replicate an object, but it's an exercise and looking at the object and looking at what you see here, and then trying to convey it with your eyes onto the paper. And so it's a direct correlation between what you're seeing and what you're drawing. And this is, look at it as an experiment and as a fun way to warm up and get used to looking at what you're actually seeing instead of drawing what you know. So here we go. I am going to start over here, and I am going to trace this coffee cup with my eyes, and then we will look at it, and then we'll see how this turns out. So I'm looking at it, and I'm going around the top rim, and then I'm circling back, going down here, trying to figure out how long it is. And then since I'm looking at it from above, we're saying, okay, maybe this comes up more like this and then shoots back up here. And then let's experiment with what's going on with this mug handle. It's coming down, around, and up over here, up, back, around, and back. So now I have the basic shape. And then I can go back and say, I'm gonna look at this a little bit more. When I look down in here, I can see a little bit of shadow and see that's the bottom of the mug. And then if this would come down, that kind of would be like what it's like on the inside. Gonna look up over here. I'm seeing there's a little bit of highlight in this area. Then I'm coming over here and seeing there's some darker shadows. And then going up into here, and there's some text. So I am just exploring the surface area of this subject. and creating a contour drawing, which is a continuous line. So if you have something and you're not really sure where to start with the contour sketch. You can experiment, loosen up, and explore your subject with the continuous line. So we're now going to discuss different ways of holding the pencil. And you might think there's just one way to hold the pencil, but there's actually multiple ways to hold it. And so when most of us think about drawing, we think about holding the pencil like this, like we're going to write our name. And so this is a tight way of holding the pencil. And you can see here that it is where we're applying pressure up at the tip. And when we're doing this, this view is good for writing, and it's also good for creating thin, controlled lines. So we can do things like this. This is great for hatching, cross-hatching, making areas of value like this that we could blend. And then another thing we can do is if you want to use this, you can use a piece of paper and then go back and forth, and then you could use the pencil in this fashion, and if you use an edge, then you can get a line. And so this is a great way if you're adding something to a horizon line. And so think about using a straight edge to add definition this way. Now, the second way of holding the pencil is like when you're having a looser grip on it like this, and you can use this to create thick, loose lines. So look at this. You can hold this, you can experiment. You have a large area of foliage that you'd like to draw. You're going to start by putting in some bushes or a big series of clouds like this. And so you're holding it. This is how we write, and so we have it up like this, and we're feeling around with it this way. Now, and then kind of feeding off of this, and once you've switched the grip on your pencil like this, you can also use it to create arcing lines. So think about using your wrist and then really being able to open up this way and using your wrist to control to create larger lines. And so the tendency when people start out as an artist and when they're learning how to draw is that they want to create very small, tight objects like this, and that they're not comfortable with their expertise. And so we make really small things. Now, don't be afraid to use the entire paper, to fill the paper from one side to the other, to fill up all the edges and to experiment. And one way of doing this is to change the grip on your pencil and to hold it in a different way in order that it is less tightly controlled. Thank you so much for joining me for the Drawing Basic Boot Camp. I hope that you learn new drawing skills that you will be able to use in your sketchbook and that you'll be drawing like a pro in no time. If you'd like to see more information about my artwork, you can check it out at AllisonLuce.com. Thank you to the McColl Center for having me. I appreciate it.